Let me please first introduce who we have with us here today and who are members of the delegation that took the tour yesterday. First, my colleagues from the legislature, Assembly Member Maritza Davila, who's to my left. She's also the chair of the Somos Conference, and we were here together as part of the Somos Conference. We have Assembly Member Marcos Crespo with us. We have Brooklyn Borough President Ruben Diaz. Bronx. Sorry, you will. I'm thinking ahead. Ken Rasky, who is from the Greater New York Hospital Association. We also have with us from my team, we have Robert Mejica, who is the State Budget Director. We have Melissa De Rosa, who is the Secretary to the Governor. Gil Quinones, who is head of the New York Power Authority, and he is members of his team here who have been doing great work since Hurricane Maria. We have Dario Diaz, who is the Regional Director of the American Red Cross, and we viewed a shelter where they were working yesterday, and they're doing great work, and we commend them. We have Terry Bischoff from the Foundation for a Better Puerto Rico, who's done great work in Puerto Rico, also all across the United States, and especially a great citizen of the state of New York. We have also the supervisor of the governor. It's a new position, Michaela Kennedy Cuomo, who is my daughter and my supervisor and has been here many times with me before. Let me make a few opening comments, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues, and then we'll take whatever questions you would have. We are here with a message to the people of Puerto Rico, which is you are not alone in this situation. I know Puerto Rico is an island, but we consider it connected to the state of New York, and you are connected in this situation. Since Hurricane Maria, we have felt every tremor with you. We have felt the pain. We have felt the need. We have shared the heartbreak of what you have gone through. I can't stress enough the connection between the people of New York and Puerto Rico. We are family, and when the people of Puerto Rico suffer, the people of New York suffer. New Yorkers follow what is going on intensely, and they're worried, they're concerned, and they want to make sure that the people of Puerto Rico know that we are together in this. And whatever you are going through, we're going through together. And whatever help you need, we will be there with you every step of the way. This is not new for us. It started with Hurricane Maria. It started before Hurricane Maria. It is a cultural connection, a familial connection that is on a very human level. So we understand what you're going through, and we will be with you every step of the way. In terms of what we have seen, we've been to Ponce, we've been to Guanica. We went through the Costa Sur power plant, which was damaged. We saw that. Costa Sur power plant is roughly 22 to 25% of the island's total power supply. The initial estimates were that the damage could take over 1 year to repair, which would put an additional stress on PREPA and the power system, which, as you know, is a power system that needs modernization and repair to begin with, and then was damaged during Hurricane Maria. We have still been working with PREPA to repair that damage. This makes a bad situation worse. In terms of what we can do to help immediately on the power supply issue, we will accelerate our efforts and intensify our efforts with PREPA. We're going to need emergency response in terms of additional power supply while the plant is being fixed and other plants are being fixed, and NYPA New York Power Authority, will intensify their efforts, provide more personnel, more expertise to work on that issue. We also need engineers who can come and inspect homes and give people comfort that their homes are structurally safe. Obviously, that is only most effective once the significant tremors stop. And one of the challenges in this situation, which I was discussing with the governor of Puerto Rico, I visited with her this morning. Most situations, you have a disaster, it's over, and then you start to rebuild. This is a continuing situation. The tremors are continuing. So it's not, it happens, and then you get on with repair reconstruction. Until the tremors stop, it is an ongoing situation that has to be managed. And nobody can tell you today when the tremors will actually stop. So it's unique in that regard. But we do need structural engineers who can come and supplement the central government and local governments, inspectors, and we will be helping with that. The Red Cross needs supplies, blankets, cots, meals, etc. And we will be working on that as soon as we get back to the States today, to New York today. And there's a particular problem in terms of mental health and reaching out to people, many of whom are in shelters, who are sleeping outside. And I think this, again, is a unique problem in this situation, and it requires special attention. Now, part of it is a rational response. People are afraid to sleep in their homes, and that is rational. We had our team members who were here, and they were in a hotel, and they felt tremors, and they left the hotel, and they slept in their cars because they were afraid to be in a structure when you feel those tremors. That's a rational response. However, people have also undergone trauma, and they've undergone trauma in their homes. And this is a particular problem. Your home is where you go to be safe. Your home is your refuge. Your home is your place where you go for comfort. Now you were in the home and you experienced the great fear that the house itself could become problematic. And this is a psychological issue. This is a mental health issue that needs special attention. And we will be working on that, providing bilingual mental health experts who can help. And Ken Rasky from the Greater New York Hospital Association will speak to that. Last point I want to raise is on the funding. The island is going to need significant resources to deal with this issue. New York will do everything they can do to help. Many other organizations will help, but the island is going to need significant funding. And that significant funding must come from the federal government. There is no other source. The island cannot print money, and the federal government is going to have to provide that. I believe the federal government has been delinquent in providing that funding. And that is a factual statement. Hurricane Maria was over 2 years ago. 2 years ago. We worked with the island on a damage assessment that was submitted to Congress, and the estimate was about $94 billion. The congressional process and the approval process, the island was only approved for a fraction of the $94 billion, which was the initial assessment. Of the money approved during Hurricane Maria by the Congress, only a handful of that fraction has been released. The main funds are in the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, called CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant, because in the federal government everything has to be an acronym, CDBG. The Community Development Block Grants funds are very important because they're very flexible funds for the island. They can provide funding for infrastructure, for housing, for water and sewer. And those funds have not been released yet from HUD, even though they were for Hurricane Maria, and it was over 2 years ago. There's $20 billion in HUD funds that were legally authorized to be dispersed for the island that have not been dispersed 2 years later. Of that $20 billion, less than $2 billion has been released. There is an additional $8 billion of funds for what's called mitigation from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which the administration just put out said they were putting out a notice of guidelines that the funds would be available. And they did that literally today. They've been under tremendous political pressure, the federal government, to release those funds. And they made a statement that they will make them available. Now, there's a big gap between saying the funds will be available and actually writing the check, right? Those are two different concepts. And so far, even on the $8 billion for mitigation, the federal government has only said that they would make it available. Those funds have not yet come to the island. This is not a political issue, my friends. The question is not, are you a Democrat or Republican? The question is whether the people of Puerto Rico are treated as American citizens or not. There are no second-class American citizens. You're an American citizen, and we don't have differentiations, variations of citizenship. Other states have had disasters. Texas has had disasters. Florida has had disasters. They have gotten their funding. Why hasn't Puerto Rico gotten its funding? That is the simple, inarguable question. Congress appropriated it. It's legally authorized. It's sitting in the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Why haven't they released the money when they have released the money to other states? Why is Puerto Rico treated differently? And they have no answer to that question. And that there should now be a second emergency, and they still haven't released the money from the first disaster, is inexplicable and inexcusable. I was the former HUD secretary. I was there for 8 years at HUD. 4 years as assistant secretary, 4 years as secretary. I did disaster assistance for 8 years. I was here with Hurricane Georges in 1998. Normally, the delay is congressional approval. Here, Congress approved the funds. There is no excuse for HUD not making the funds available. And without the funding, the island is handcuffed in its response. We will do everything we can. And we'll do everything we can to advocate for the funds being released. Our congressional delegation from New York is a very strong congressional delegation. And our congressional delegation was very involved in getting the funds approved in the first place. And our congressional delegation is very involved in pressuring the administration to now release those funds. So we'll continue to fight with you on that front. But it has to be raised. We're going to have to raise our voices. We're going to have to push this federal administration because they're obviously not going to do it on their own. With that, let me turn it over to my colleague, who I mentioned is the chair of the SOMOS conference. She's been extraordinarily helpful to Puerto Rico. She's a great advocate for Puerto Rico. She's a legislator from Brooklyn, but you would think she's a legislator from Puerto Rico, the way she advocates and pushes. And with that, Assemblymember Marisa Davila.
Thank you, Governor. This is working. First, I want to thank you for always being presente for Puerto Rico. There is no mystery in how the Puerto Rican community is suffering. And we had this conversation yesterday where I told him, I've been here since Friday and I've been up to many of the places that have been affected. And the first thing they ask is, ¿Cuándo va a llegar la ayuda? When is the help coming? And I was telling them, it's coming soon, it's coming soon. And with that said, I think you touched up on every issue right now, immediate issue that Puerto Rico needs. We are in a very delicate state. I have seen how traumatized people are, and you are right. Psychological help is probably one of the first things that need to happen here so that they can become resilient again. Sorry. But we are in a crisis that we don't know when it's going to end, but I am extremely grateful to my governor and my colleagues for being here today to deliver this message that is extremely necessary. But we have a lot of work to do with the federal government, and we must not stop. As a Puerto Rican woman, I need to tell you that I am relentless. I am here, always presente, but we have a lot of work, and we must make sure that the federal government releases the money, as the governor was just stating. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. We are completely grateful. Thank you, Governor Cuomo, for always being presente.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to Assemblymember Marcos Crespo from the great borough of the Bronx. Marcos and I were on the first plane that landed after Hurricane Maria with Ruben Diaz, borough president of the Bronx. Maritz is from Brooklyn, Ruben is from the Bronx, and Marcos is from the Bronx. But we were on the first plane that landed after Hurricane Maria, and in many ways, it feels like we never left after that flight. But with that, Assemblymember Marcos Crespo.
Muchas gracias, gobernador. Quiero primero decirle que sin el liderato suyo, de su administración, de su equipo y la movilización de recursos que usted ha proveído para el pueblo de Puerto Rico, yo estoy convencido de que hemos ayudado a salvar vidas, no solamente ahora, pero lo que hemos venido haciendo del huracán María, y lo digo con mucho respeto, porque como puertorriqueño yo nací aquí, mi familia vive aquí, mami vive aquí, y hemos visto lo que ha venido sucediendo. Nosotros vinimos con el gobernador desde antes de la crisis de huracán María, cuando lo que se comentaba era la situación económica. El gobernador hizo un compromiso con Puerto Rico desde ese entonces. Y ese compromiso se ha mantenido, como dijo el gobernador, lo prometió en aquel momento y lo ha cumplido, que él caminaría paso a paso con los puertorriqueños a través de todas las necesidades. Y al pueblo de Puerto Rico lo que les digo es que como puertorriqueño en la diáspora, qué orgullo siento de saber que a pesar del maltrato del gobierno federal, a pesar de cómo nos han ignorado, a pesar del sufrimiento que continúa viviendo tanto puertorriqueño, yo sé que por lo menos en el estado de Nueva York, con el liderato del gobernador Cuomo, con mis colegas en el gobierno, seguiremos luchando por ustedes y haciendo todo lo posible para que esta situación mejore y la ayuda, no ayuda, y que los fondos merecidos por el pueblo puertorriqueño sean otorgados al pueblo de Puerto Rico. Governor, to those of you who may be bilingually challenged, let me just tell you, I first of all want to thank you. I want to thank you for your leadership, for your commitment. You made a promise to us, to the people of Puerto Rico. And I say the people of Puerto Rico because make no mistake about it, this is for the people of Puerto Rico. The governor has worked hand in hand with different administrations and different political affiliations here. But Governor Cuomo came to Puerto Rico before Hurricane Maria. He brought us here during the economic crisis and made a commitment then that New York would stand shoulder to shoulder with the Puerto Rican community through all of its crisis. And Governor, you have not only met that commitment, you have exceeded the expectations. And I say exceeded because yesterday, as we talked and walked and saw the damage, we were talking about this during that walk with the different mayors, how it is unconscionable that the federal government had not released those funds, and it was unconscionable that more federal leaders weren't on the ground doing what you have been doing, raising the alarm, talking about the issue, bringing attention to something that has largely gone ignored nationally by the media. And it was only after your visit and your presence and your mobilization of so many great leaders and agencies and resources like Greater New York Hospital, like the American Red Cross and the Power Authority and all of the other union labor leaders that are on the ground. It has been your leadership that raised the consciousness to where now HUD makes an announcement that was long overdue. But we cannot rest on that, because at the same time that those $8 billion now get, one step further to being released, at the same time, we saw the negotiations at the federal level where Democrats and Republicans agreed to give over $12 billion over 4 years for our Medicaid program. What does the president do? He slashes that deal by more than half and limits it to 2 years, $5.7 billion over 2 years. And what's even more degrading and insulting is that in an explanation of why they did so, his response, or his administration's response, is we have to put Americans first, and we have to protect American taxpayers first. It seems like the leadership in Washington, despite everything that's been said and everything that's happened over the last 2 years, still hasn't learned a very simple civics lesson. We are American citizens. We are American taxpayers. And the millions more in the diaspora that also contribute and pay taxes are suffering alongside the many Puerto Ricans who are sleeping outside their homes in fear. And it seems to me like the only leader that has done everything, gone above and beyond despite the criticisms. Why are we here? Because the governor understands that first and foremost, helping people in dire need is important for any leader. Second, because the diaspora in the state of New York is part of Puerto Rico. Where do you think so many Puerto Ricans left when they were forced out in past migrations? New York is where they call home. And we are suffering. And we are ending up in hospitals. And we are suffering financially. And we are taking in those that can no longer sustain themselves here. So there are strong reasons as to why this is important. But as a Puerto Riqueño, put politics out the window. What matters to me is that when I feel completely impotent as an elected official, what more can I do for my community? The one person that stepped up to the plate and allowed us an opportunity to do that has been Governor Cuomo. And Governor, I don't know what will happen in politics in the future. I don't know what my future holds, but I know that in everything I've been able to do, nothing has given me more of a sense of pride and honor than what I've been able to do for the people of Puerto Rico, both home and here in the island, and it is all because of you. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful and very well said as usual, Marcos. We'll now turn it over to Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr.
Gracias, gobernador. Buenos días a todos. Yo soy el presidente del Condado de la Zarza y brevemente, simplemente lo que yo creo que Marco está diciendo es que aunque el gobernador es nuestro líder máximo políticamente en el estado de Nueva York, es un gran ejemplo de lo que es ser humano, de lo que es ser un amigo. Un amigo es una persona durante tiempos difíciles, tiempos de crisis, siempre está ahí. Y no para beneficiarle políticamente, porque ya él corrió y ya el pueblo lo apoyó. Y antes del huracán de María, durante el crisis económico, él estuvo aquí con nosotros. Durante el huracán de María estuvo aquí con nosotros. Ahora, durante estos terremotos, está aquí de nuevo con nosotros, con su equipo. Y no hay ninguna duda que si él no estuviera aquí, que tampoco la prensa de allá no esté aquí tampoco para enseñarle al mundo lo que está sucediendo en nuestro pueblo. Y por eso a ustedes les damos las gracias. Y no hay ninguna duda tampoco de que la razón que él está aquí con nuestras colegas y el equipo que tenemos y la delegación que tenemos aquí, que ahora por fin la persona que está en la Casa Blanca esta mañana ahora está diciendo que sí quiere soltar ciertos dineros, ciertos fondos para ayudar que nosotros nos merecemos como ciudadanos, como americanos. And so like always, in all your visits, Governor, And I saw it not only in the people of Guanica yesterday, and the people of my mom's hometown of Ponce and my family who you met yesterday. I know that you always come to assess with your team, and we're grateful and we thank you for that. But what you do in your visits do a number of things. A, it allows for the media to come in, because a lot of folks over there always say, why isn't the media covering what's going on in Puerto Rico, whether the hurricane or now with the earthquakes and the tremors, as much as they should, as much as they cover other petty issues. So you bring awareness in your visit, number one. But even more importantly, what I saw is that with all the anxiety, with all of the stress that people are going through, that you bring hope, that you bring comfort. And that is necessary. That's the true meaning of friendship. There is no doubt that without your visit, without us making the noise and bringing the spotlight to this issue, that this signing off of the guidelines would have not had taken place by the guy in the White House masquerading as President of the United States this morning. And so we have a lot of work to do. And I know Gil Quiñones working with NYPA. I know Ken Rasky working with the healthcare individuals. I know that as we move forward, we're going to plan out and continue to help the people here in the island of Puerto Rico the best possible. For those who are back in New York, as we go back today, understand that Friday there's a concert at Lehman College, 7 p.m. in the Bronx. Saturday, we're doing something in the street with clergy in the Bronx and the South Bronx and Southern Boulevard and Aldous Avenue. We saw a number of things for short term, and speaking to Terry and speaking to Dario, what people need here are not that you clean out your closets. May not be the things that you sent over for Hurricane Maria. What we saw yesterday is that there's a dire need for blankets. There's a dire need for pillows, even onesies, because as Terry said earlier, that we find ourselves in a situation where we're trying to shelter people outdoors. Usually we're trying to shelter people with a roof over their heads. And so we saw a lot of people who perhaps their houses and their building were not structurally compromised, but psychologically they don't want to be indoors, as the governor stated earlier. And so as we move forward, please be targeted and focused about what the folks in the southwestern part of the island can actually use now as we start preparing long-term with the governor of our great state, with our friend Cuomo, and the people here and the government and the organizations here on the ground, so that we can continue to provide the assistance. The federal government, the New York delegation, our U.S. senators, Democratic presidential candidates, we are Americans. And just like Cuomo has been here for us, we need you all to continue to make sure that we get the funding here that we deserve as American citizens.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mr. President. Ken Rasky represents the New York hospitals, the healthcare organizations. They have been fantastic in their response, starting with Hurricane Maria. Literally thousands of people have come down to help. And the Ken Rasky and the Greater New York Hospital Association is going to do the same thing here once again. I turn it over to Ken Rasky.
Well, thank you, Governor Cuomo, and thank you for the opportunity to join my good friends and colleagues from New York and Puerto Rico to witness firsthand the devastation that has occurred to this island. It seems like I've said that before, but it seems like it doesn't go away, does it? And the Greater New York Hospital Association, like yourself, Governor, is dedicated to the people of Puerto Rico. They're our brothers and sisters. And we will do whatever we can to help you through this crisis. It's never easy. It's going to require a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. But I want you to know that all of your friends and relatives in New York are with you. Your hospital workers are with you. The healthcare professionals are with you. We will do whatever we can to be helpful. Unlike Maria, sir, where we sent down mostly clinicians, doctors, nurses for physical ailments, this will require mental health professionals to help, as been pointed out repeatedly by our fine speakers, that stress is a different ailment, and it takes a different set of treatments. And the call has been put out by me to all the healthcare systems throughout New York to send volunteers that are bilingual and mental health professionals to come down. We will organize it, sir. We will pay for it and make sure that their lodging is paid for and their transportation needs are paid for. And it is, I hate to say it, but I'm in a way, I'm glad to be in a position to be helpful.
Great.
So God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken, and that's very generous of you and your members. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One last point that my colleagues made me think of. Politics is intense in Puerto Rico. Politics is intense in New York, but not like it is in Puerto Rico. Your politics is very, very intense. New York, we're very intense about allegiance to sports teams. That's why I try to stay away from Yankees or Mets. We don't want to make that, we don't want to answer that question. We root for everyone. But this is not about politics. I was in Fortaleza this morning, and it reminded me that great President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, who's also a great New Yorker, former governor of New York, New York State, was in Fortaleza. And he came down to talk about the New Deal that he had proposed. And he came to Puerto Rico to make sure that Puerto Rico knew that they were part of the New Deal. And when he addressed the people of Puerto Rico, FDR said, "My friends and fellow citizens, my friends and fellow citizens." That's what FDR said, fellow citizens. People of Puerto Rico are American citizens. Treat them that way. Treat them that way. It's that simple.